It all started on that stormy night when I saw him walking out of her house with a strange glow. I knew something was off, but I couldn't look away. I grew up in a small village in Africa. Life was tough, and I had to fend for myself after my parents passed away. I was just a lonely orphan, struggling to find food and a sense of belonging. I would watch rich kids play, their laughter echoing around me, while I fought against my hunger. One day I was wandering near the edges of town when I stumbled upon a girl named Amina. She came from one of the wealthiest families in the city. We talked and laughed for the first time, and I felt a spark of hope. Amina was kind and she treated me like I mattered. She invited me to her home for food, but the moment I stepped inside, I felt a strange chill. The house was enormous, filled with grand decorations, but there was something unsettling in the air. I could see her parents watching me closely, their eyes filled with suspicion. As days turned into weeks, Amina would bring me to her house often. Little did I know, there was a darker side to her family. They were known for their wealth, but also for their strange rituals and whispered secrets. One evening while I was visiting Amina, I overheard her parents arguing. They spoke about a great opportunity, something involving me. It made my skin crawl, but Amina assured me they only wanted the best for both of us. I tried to push my unease aside, convinced that luck was finally on my side. Soon after, Amina's parents approached me with a proposition. They wanted me to marry their daughter. At first, it sounded like a dream come true. I would escape poverty, and I cared for Amina. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a hidden price to it. I accepted their offer, and soon everything changed. I was whisked away to the city, enveloped in luxury and comfort. Yet the deeper I got into that world, the more I felt trapped. I noticed how the servants whispered and looked fearful when they saw Amina's parents. One night I was restless and wandered into the basement of their lavish house. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were gilded cages and strange symbols on the walls. I realized those were not just decorations. They were part of a dark ritual to keep their wealth, sacrifices made to hold on to their fortune. I rushed back to my room, terrified. I confronted Amina, begging her to leave with me, but she smiled sadly and told me I would never understand. Her parents had promised greatness, and I was part of that deal now. Days passed, and the weight of their expectations pressed down on me. I started to feel more like a puppet than a husband. Every day I felt the shadows getting closer, whispering threats of what would happen if I tried to escape. Finally, I made my decision. One stormy night, when the howling winds drowned out every sound, I slipped away. I ran through the streets, fueled by fear and desperation. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the village, far from the ominous house. Now I live in the shadows of my old life, avoiding the glances of those who don't know the truth. No one realizes that not all luck is a blessing, and some doors should never be opened. I still wonder about Amina and her family. What happened to her after I left? Did they find another way to keep their riches? But deep down, I know that I escaped a dark fate. Sometimes it's better to be poor and free than rich and trapped. And if you ever find yourself facing a life-changing opportunity, remember, not all gifts come without a price. Months passed after I fled that mansion, but the nightmares wouldn't leave. I saw Amina's face everywhere, especially when the rain would beat against my window at night. I often found myself wondering what had happened to her, but I was terrified of the answers. In my village, life went on as usual. The villagers were unaware of the darker side of wealth and had their own struggles. I started helping with the crops, finding solace in the simple life. But it wasn't easy to push away the fear that lingered like an unwanted guest. One evening as I harvested yams, I heard whispers among a group of villagers. They spoke of strange occurrences in the city, people going missing, lights flickering in the old mansion, and shadows moving around late at night. My heart raced. I could feel the pull of the city, a reminder of what I had escaped. A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to go back to the city, not for Amina, but to find answers. I hid during the day and crept around at night, observing from afar. As I moved near the mansion, I felt an eerie energy wrap around me. I wanted to turn back, but I had to know if Amina was all right. That night, I saw figures moving inside. They looked frantic, and I could hear muffled screams, but the laughter of her parents echoed louder, chilling me to the bone. My heart was pounding. I couldn't approach the house. Instead, I decided to hide and listen. Hours passed, and finally I saw Amina. She looked different, almost pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to scream for help. I knew she was trapped, and the thought twisted my stomach. After what felt like an eternity, I heard a strange chant. It sent shivers down my spine, and I felt the air around me grow heavy. The words echoed in a language I didn't understand, filled with power and darkness. I could no longer bear to watch. I had to save her. Throwing caution aside, I ran to the front door of the mansion. I had no plan, only desperation pushing me forward. As I kicked the door open, I was greeted with shocked faces, including Amina's parents. "What are you doing here?" her father bellowed, his voice sharp like a whip. I could feel their rage, but I only had eyes for Amina. "You have to leave. They're using you," I yelled, trying to reach her. Suddenly, the air around me crackled with energy, and I felt an invisible force pushing me back. The shadows in the room seemed to pulse, swirling towards me menacingly, blocking my path to her. "Foolish boy," Amina's mother sneered. "You think you can rescue her? We are bound by promises you cannot understand." In that moment of desperation, Amina reached out to me. "Please help me," she cried, her voice breaking. But I felt the shadows tightening around me, threatening to swallow me whole. I turned and ran, barreling through the door and back into the night, hearing her screams fade behind me. I stumbled through the dark streets, feeling the weight of failure settle on my shoulders. Back in my village, I couldn't shake Amina's face from my mind. Days turned into weeks, and the whispers of the villagers grew louder. The stories of dark figures moving in the night, of sacrifices made for wealth. One night, as I sat by the fire with a few friends, an elder spoke up. "Those who seek riches without hard work are often met with curses," he said, his voice low and serious. "Beware, for the night hides many secrets." The next morning, I decided to take action. I couldn't just sit back knowing Amina was in danger. So I gathered a few friends who believed me, and we planned a way to save her. We would go to the mansion once more, not to rescue her like a hero in a story, but to confront her parents and uncover their secrets. Armed with courage and a few makeshift weapons, we made our way to the city under the cover of darkness. As we approached the mansion, I felt that same chill in the air, but this time I was not alone. Every step felt heavier, but I pressed on. When we finally reached the grand entrance, we pushed the doors open together. This time, I was ready for the shadows. The moment we stepped inside, the air shifted. The chanting began again, but it was louder now, vibrating off the walls. Amina was there, at the center of a dark circle, but something was different. Her eyes glowed with the same strange light as the others, an unsettling sign that she was no longer the girl I had known. "You shouldn't have come back," she yelled, but her voice didn't sound like her own. It was layered, as if many voices spoke through her. I felt my heart sink. The darkness had claimed her. "Get away from her," I shouted, stepping forward. But the shadows surged towards me, ready to strike. Just as I prepared to fight, the elder's warning echoed in my mind. Sometimes the bravest thing to do is to run. I turned to my friends and we bolted out of the mansion as the shadows chased us. We ran until we reached the safety of the village. I could hardly breathe, my heart racing from fear and regret. What could I have done differently? Amina was lost, and there was nothing I could do about it. After that night, the mansion fell silent. Rumors spread of it being abandoned, but I could never shake the feeling that it was far from empty. In the weeks that followed, I noticed changes in the village. A heavy fog seemed to cling to the air, and livestock disappeared without explanation. People whispered of bad luck and dark omens. Every night I would lie awake, haunted by Amina's glowing eyes and her haunting plea for help. I knew I had to face the truth. The darkness that held her captive was not confined to the mansion. It had seeped into our world. One evening, while tending to the fields, I overheard two elders discussing an ancient text, a tome that was said to unlock the mysteries of dark magic and its curses. They spoke of a time when the village had battled similar forces and how they had sealed away these dark entities. I felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this book could help me save Amina. I approached them, heart pounding. Where can I find this tome? I asked. The elders exchanged wary glances before one of them replied, "It is hidden within the old shrine outside the village, protected by ancient wards. Few dare to venture there, for the shrine has its own guardian." The very mention of the shrine sent a shiver down my spine, but I couldn't let fear stop me. As night fell, I set out toward the shrine, determined to retrieve the tome. With the moon as my only guide, I navigated through the dense woods, feeling as if unseen eyes were watching my every move. Finally, I reached the shrine, its stones weathered and cracked. Strange symbols pulsed faintly in the moonlight. Taking a deep breath, I approached and placed my hand on the cold stone. "I seek knowledge to save a friend," I whispered. As if in response, the ground trembled, and a figure emerged from the shadows. The guardian of the shrine was a shimmering specter, its face obscured by a hood. "State your intention, seeker," it spoke, its voice echoing like a distant thunderstorm. "I want to save Amina," I declared, not backing down. "She is trapped by dark forces, and I need to know how to free her." The guardian studied me intently, and after what felt like an eternity, it nodded. "Your heart is pure, but darkness is not easily undone. To gain the knowledge you seek, you must prove yourself. Face your deepest fears within the shrine, and only then will you be worthy of the tome." With a resolute nod, I stepped forward. Inside the shrine, the air thickened with anticipation. I felt as though the walls themselves were alive, pulsing with the secrets of ages past. Darkness closed in all around me, and I stumbled into a void that felt endless. Suddenly, I was no longer alone. My fears took shape. Vision after vision overwhelmed me. I saw myself failing to save Amina, watched as the shadows consumed her, leaving nothing but darkness behind. The weight of guilt pressed down on me. What if I had just left things be? What if I was the one who damned her? Willpower surged within me. "No, I won't give in! I will save her!" I shouted into the darkness, steeling my resolve. The void responded fiercely, swirling around me, as if testing my determination. It was a battle of will. I fought with everything I had, confronting each fear head-on, refusing to back down. The shadows shrieked, twisting and turning. Yet with every scream, I felt a flicker of light grow stronger within me. Finally, with a blinding flash, the darkness shattered like glass. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for breath, but I could feel the weight lifting from my heart. The guardian appeared once more, impressed. "You have faced your fears. You are ready." It extended a hand, revealing the ancient tome bound in worn leather. I took it, feeling the weight of my responsibility settle more firmly on my shoulders. "Remember," the guardian warned, "true power lies not in the strength of the spells, but in the strength of your resolve and the bonds of love." With the tome clutched tightly to my chest, I raced back to the village, heart pounding with a newfound purpose. I had the knowledge I needed to confront the darkness that had taken Amina. That night, I gathered my friends and shared what I had learned. We dedicated ourselves to the task of breaking the dark spell. The tome described an ancient ritual to counteract the binding magic. However, it required not only courage but also a sacrifice of sorts. A piece of one's own essence needed to be offered alongside the chant. As we prepared, I felt a weight in my chest, a mixture of fear and resolve. I readily offered part of my essence. "If it helps free Amina, it's worth it," I declared. My friends followed suit, each pledging their courage and strength. That night we returned to the mansion, the tome guiding us. As we approached, I could feel the shadows growing restless, swirling around us in agitation. But with each step, our bonds strengthened our resolve. We encircled the mansion, chanting the words from the tome, our voices merging into a powerful reminder that this was not just about me. This was for Amina, and for every soul lost to darkness. The shadows shrieked, twisting and writhing as the light exploded from us, pushing against the darkness that had consumed the mansion. I could feel Amina's presence, a flicker of light within the shadows, urging me to continue. And then, just as hope began to waver, the front door swung open, and Amina stood there, her face pale but her eyes burning with recognition. "Help me!" she cried, stepping forward. And in that moment, everything changed. With renewed strength, we thrust our energy forward, feeding into the spell, igniting the very core of the binding magic. The shadows screamed, battling against our light, but we pressed on. With a surge of collective strength, we channeled our spirits, and the light intensified, piercing through the darkness like a beam of hope. Amina's figure shimmered, flickering between realms, as if the shadows were still clinging to her. "I can't hold on much longer," she shouted, her voice strained. "Just stay with us," I urged, reaching out toward her. "We won't let you go." The air crackled with energy, the very fabric of reality trembling under the strain. The shadows shrieked louder, agitated by our defiance. They whipped around us, grasping at our limbs, trying to pull us back into the darkness from which they thrived. But we were not alone. The village had been awakened. Others joined our chant, voices rising like a symphony against the storm. The bonds of community fortified our strength, our shared love and determination, creating an impenetrable wall of light. The space around us elongated, time itself stretching in a heartbeat. As I felt the energy of my friends and the villagers meld into one, I realized we were not just fighting for Amina. We were battling for all that was pure and good in our world. We were a united front against despair. "Reach for her," I cried. "Together!" With that collective will, we directed our light towards Amina. I could see her clearly now, the shadows swirling more furiously around her, fighting to reclaim their prize. But the light we generated began to pull her from the grasp of darkness gently, illuminating every corner of the mansion, every crevice where shadows hid. With a final effort, I extended my hand toward her, tears in my eyes. "Amina, come back to us!" Then it happened. She seized the light and began to step forward, moving through the shadows that had once bound her. The moment she crossed through the barrier of light we had created, the darkness shrieked in agony, contorting and swirling in a frenzied attempt to resist. In a burst of energy, she was free. Amina stumbled into my arms as the light enveloped us both, the shadows dissipating into nothingness, bearing an expanse of stars above as they receded. The mansion shuddered, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, tranquility settled over us. Breathless, we stood there together, surrounded by the warm glow of village hearts united as the whispers of the dark faded into silence. How, how did you find me?" Amina asked, tears streaming down her cheeks, both from relief and the residual fear of her ordeal. "We never stopped searching," I replied, pulling her closer. "We fought for you because you're not just a part of our lives. You're a part of us." The villagers cheered, their voices raising in elation, but I still felt the weight of the tome in my hand. There was much work to be done. The darkness had been banished for now, but the tome held secrets of more than just spells. It contained history, knowledge of the battles fought in ages past. We would need to prepare, to learn, to ensure that such darkness would never threaten our home again. As Amina emerged from the shadows and returned to us, I resolved to gather the villagers, to understand the power we now held, and to safeguard our future against the lurking shadows of despair. And so, in the heart of our village, we formed a council, a union of hearts and minds dedicated to confronting any darkness that dared approach. Amina, now free, shared her experience, giving us insight into the shadows and their tricks. Through laughter and tears, stories of our past were woven together with hopes for the future. Our bonds grew stronger, fortified by shared trials. We studied the tome, committing the lessons to heart, vowing never to let fear take root again. As the stars twinkled above and the night air filled with promise, I glanced at Amina, grateful for her light and the resilience we found in each other. Together, we were ready to face whatever came next. In the days that followed, we learned to harness our strengths, not just to observe, but to actively protect our community. The darkness had taught us valuable lessons about despair and resilience. The tome became our guide, a cherished artifact reminding us that even in the darkest of times, the light of hope could illuminate the path forward. The village stood stronger than ever, bound together by love, loss, and the unwavering determination to never allow the shadows to capture our hearts again. And so, we ventured into our brighter future, together. As the seasons shifted, our village flourished. the shadows of despair receded, replaced by a vibrant tapestry of friendship and unity. Each day we gathered in the town square, sharing stories, laughter, and knowledge. Amina became the heart of our community, often leading our discussions on how to safeguard against the darkness. With the tome as our guide, we trained and prepared. We learned the ancient ways, mastering techniques to amplify our light and harness it to protect our home. Our bonds grew stronger with each passing day as we faced new challenges and celebrated joyous moments together. One evening, as the sun set in a cascade of orange and pink hues, we held a festival to celebrate our resilience and unity. Lanterns floated through the sky, illuminating the darkening night. Music filled the air, a melody of hope and remembrance. As I stood with Amina, watching our villagers dance and laugh, an overwhelming sense of peace washed over me. We had faced the shadows, and in doing so, had learned the power of light and love. "Remember when we thought we would lose everything?" she whispered, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Yes," I replied, my heart swelling with gratitude. "But we found each other instead. That was our true strength." In that moment, I knew our journey was far from over, but we were ready for whatever the future held. We had ignited a flame, one fueled by friendship and courage, and the darkness that once threatened to engulf us had transformed into a distant memory. As the night deepened, a collective cheer erupted, echoing through the valley. Hope was alive, and our village thrived under the stars. We had found our purpose, not just to protect ourselves, but to inspire others. For every flicker of light we shared only served to diminish the shadows. And so, with our hearts intertwined and our spirits high, we continued down the path of our new life, a life filled with promise, adventure, and the unwavering belief that as long as we stood together, no darkness could ever capture us again.